Hi, Zombie Freak 21 here, and today I want to talk about the subject on hip hop and why today's hip hop sucks now. Before I get into the bad points, let me go into the early days of hip hop. Hip hop was, of course, originated around the 1970s, but it didn't get that much attention till around the 80s. And of course, it didn't go mainstream thanks to the success of the collaboration of Run DMC and Aerosmith Walk This Way, which of course broke the barriers between rock and hip hop. And I give major props to them for helping helping hip hop get into mainstream success. I am of course talking about Aerosmith, but of course back then hip hop pretty much usually tells stories, and of course it's all about rhyming. And in order to be a good rapper, you have to be good at poetry, which today's so-called rappers lack at. I'm looking at you, Soulja Boy and Lil Wayne. Well, of course, because hip hop, it's all about telling stories from real life issues, basically how to survive, and all that good stuff. Of course, when growing up, hip hop was my favorite genre of music because it was something I could relate to. Considering being raised by a single parent, and I kind of relate to what Tupac had gone through. But let me get into, of course, the 90s. Now, 90s hip hop was good, but the only difference was from the 80s version of it. The 90s hip hop was pretty much dark. It was pretty much dark and crucial. But the reason why it was so good back then, it pretty much spoke the truth about today's society, especially those that, of course, grew up in the ghetto, or some that used to sell drugs. Basically, it's all about surviving. And it was the kind I miss. It used to give out an important message. But let me get into the part where hip hop started declining. I know many people had complained that hip hop had died in the 2000s, but truth be told, hip hop kind of started dying around the mid to late 90s. It kind of started around let's say 1996, where you could say that hip hop started focusing on cars. Case in point, there's this guy who used to go by Tongue Twister, but now calls himself Twister. He's the one who sang that song Do or Die. It was basically about cars. Then of course around 1997 1998 they started talking about women. Of course that's around when Lil Wayne first came out. Of course I was a kid at the time. Back then I didn't really care for him. And of course then they started singing about bling. If you remember the song All About the Benjamins. At first I thought that everybody would be against this, but unfortunately too many people support this kind of direction. So they start focusing more about talking about cars, women, money, and less about real life situations and rhythm and poetry. So too many people support that direction, and this is sort of why hip hop is pretty much now considered as the worst genre of music. It's just so bad that it makes the other genre of music, such as rock music, sound decent. And of course, that was sort of the reason. You could say the decline of hip hop is what made me go into rock music. But even rock music has somewhat declined because it's all about. It went from rock to pop, but I'm kind of going out topic on this. But And some of the good rappers such as Eminem and E40, they're pretty much sellouts now because even they're falling for the mainstream crap. Because E40, he was actually in T-Pain's video Buy You a Drink, and regretfully I used to like that song. But keep in mind, I was in high school back then. I kind of didn't, I only followed by what everyone else was doing back then. And of course, good band. There's now keep in mind, hip hop isn't exactly dead, but as I said, the good ones are pretty much buried underground. If you ever heard of Blues Scholars and Jurassic 5, they're the ones who still stick to hip hop's roots. But as again, they don't get much recognition because they don't talk about the BS that Lil Wayne and Soulja Boy say in their lyrics. And speaking of Lil Wayne, he's probably one of the few people that have pretty much ruined hip hop as well. And not to mention, does anybody know what the hell he's talking about? Because most of his stuff he mumbles. But of course, anyone will mumble if if they do nothing but get high all the time and get too addicted on cough syrup. But that's beside the point. Hip hop, which is, of course, I don't know what to call it anymore. It just all this stuff that they're talking about, it makes me feel ashamed to be a hip hop fan. But I will get into my thoughts on I can make a part 2 of my thoughts on the separate bands such as Lil Wayne and Soulja Boy. But speaking of it, Ice-T, of course, was one of the few people who did diss Soulja Boy for ruining hip hop, which I don't blame him because I felt the same way. Even Spice One, who was formerly a rapper, if you're familiar with his song "Welcome to the Ghetto," and 187 Proof, because even he hates what hip hop has become. So basically, hip hop went from being awesome, speaking the truth, and going through everyday issues into basically random bullshit that that nobody really cares about. But of course, they don't care. Basically, these so-called rappers don't care how bad they sound unless they're making money off of it. So it's all about the money instead of the lack of creativity. Well, that's all I have to say about this. I'm Zombie Freak 21, and I'll see you next time.